Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well and you've had an opportunity to join some talks and get some great information as a part of this conference. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very, very excited. Today is a very exciting session, and we have a great panel of professionals in the information security space. And today we are going to be talking about career advancement in cybersecurity. And this is a panel of people, we're passionate about helping others advance their career in cybersecurity. And I'll tell you, just by taking the time to sit through this, you are investing in your career. Some of you are taking time off to go to this session, or maybe you're taking your lunch break, maybe with your employer's permission, you're multitasking at work while watching this, or we won't talk about if you don't have your employer's permission to multitask while watching this, but we are here to encourage you. We're here not to give you textbook answers on what to do to prepare your career or what to do to go further in this field, but we're here to encourage you and to give you our perspective, our opinions, our experience in this area. A couple of quick things just for housekeeping. This is the Triad chapter of the ISSA, and we are giving away a count of 40 $25 Amazon gift cards to attendees at this conference. And so stick around. Make sure you're counted just by being at this session. You're counted in that list of attendees, and definitely check your email in the next 48 hours. We're going to inform all of the winners through email. And I'm Jeff Hoge. I'm your moderator today, and I also serve as the Triad ISSA chapter secretary. So this is not a bait and switch. This is not a, hey, you came to this session and now you have to join. This is free, but if you are interested in joining our chapter, the Triad of North Carolina chapter, or any other chapter of ISSA, let me know. It's a great opportunity to network with other professionals. So I've got to give a disclaimer first. You're going to hear a lot of opinionated statements today. You may even hear some heated opinions. And I want to speak for everyone here. We like our jobs. I believe we all like our jobs and we want to keep our jobs. So just because you might hear a statement or two today, that's not the official stand or positions of our employers. It's not the official stand or positions of ISSA. And any member of our panel can disagree during their introduction if they don't disagree with that disclaimer. But before we get this panel open, I just want to ask a poll question really quickly. How long have you worked professionally in information technology? Is that you don't work professionally yet in IT? Is it less than a year? Are you an old timer that's been around for 10 plus years? Notice we asked about information technology, not necessarily information security. And we'll get into that a little more in a little bit, and we'll have an opportunity to show off the results. And I think it'll be a good place to jump in and have this conversation. So I'm going to keep this poll open for about 20 more seconds, and then we'll get into some introductions. Okay, so we have a fantastic panel here today, and I'm really happy because there's a lot of different industries represented and lots of levels of experience. We have some people that have been doing IT and information security for a long time, others that have just joined the information security profession in the last couple of years. And so I want to take a second to let the members of our panel introduce themselves, let us know your current role, and maybe how long you've been in IT or information security specifically. So Jason, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Very good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Cox. I am the Chief Information Security Officer at company that is now known as Elevate Textiles. Elevate Textiles is a combination of two different well-established companies. One that you may have heard of in Greensboro, International Textile Group, which is made up of the brands of Burlington Industries, Cone Denim, and Safety Components, which is in Greenville, South Carolina. And in 2018, they acquired American and Eford, which is the second largest global manufacturer of thread that goes into everything from baseballs, automotive fabrics, to the clothes we wear. And they have that brand as well as Gutermann. So it's 5 different brands that are well established, been around for a little over 100 years. Prior to that, I did some consulting for a company here in the Triad called Dynamic Quest, which is how I got into the CISO role I'm now doing for Elevate. Did that for almost 4 years. Most of that time was actually concentrated working here. Then was at 4 years at High Point Regional Hospital, which is indirectly how Jeff and I got to know each other through our healthcare connections that we have. And then spent a little over 10 years at North State Communications, which was just purchased by Segra. So grand total, that's almost 20 years of experience in IT, the last almost decade of which has been fully dedicated to information security.
Awesome. Lori, how about you?
Hey everyone, Lori Cole. I'm the SOC manager at Hanes Brands, so I protect all the socks and underwear. I have a great team. Most of them are on the call today. I've been in IT my entire working career, so through the U.S. Army all the way to the commercial space, so about 17 years. Happy to be here. Thanks, Jeff.
And Andrew.
Yeah, afternoon, everyone. Really excited to see so many people interested in being part of this experience. Kudos to Jeff and the team here for putting it all together. I've been in, first of all, I'm the director of IT and security official for MedCost. MedCost is owned by 2 of the largest healthcare systems in the Carolinas, Wake Forest Baptist Health and Atrium Health. Fortunately, I've been in technology all of my working career also, Lori, and have had the opportunity, not just through college, but as I've managed to expand my role and responsibility to just continue to grow and thrive in roles of leadership in technology. So it's been just over 20 years. Really excited to have the opportunity to share some of those experiences with this team, hear from some of the other panelists, and just be able to contribute in the most meaningful way.
Fantastic. Courtney, how about you?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Courtney. I'm a senior information security analyst at USAA. I've been in security for about 2 years, and before that, I was a business process analyst, so I was more in that project management line of work. So it's definitely new to me. I love it. It's such a gratifying career, and I hope that I can help out as many people that were willing to reach out and help me get into this field. So I'm looking forward to speaking to everybody and hearing from the other panelists today.
Thanks so much, Courtney. Andrew, Travis.
Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Travis. I'm the Information Security Officer at Radford University in Southwest Virginia. We have about 10 or 12,000 students, undergrad and grad, as well as about 2,000 employees that my team's responsible for protecting them and their data. It's a small team. There's only about 3 of us. So I'm the ISO, which you would think doing management and management tasks and working on policy, but I also have to do a lot of operational work, incident response, as well as security architecture. So it allows me to do a lot of different things in the area. I moved into security about 3 years ago. Before that, I was a network engineer for about 10 years. But it helped because now I understand a lot of the security aspects of network engineering and network security.
That's fantastic. And I'm hearing like lots of previews of some things that we're probably going to get into in a little bit. Jonathan, how about you?
How's it going? I'm Jonathan Cole. I'm a senior security engineer with Inmar Intelligence. My day-to-day is varied, but it has to do with security operations. I manage most of the security operations going on there, detection, analytics, incident response, forensic analysis. I do SecDevOps, do security architecture, design, engineering, implementation, you name it. So I've been in security probably, I guess 12 years, but I've been in IT about 22. Started with the military, worked there, both as enlisted and as a contractor. Spent time all over the world, worked within everything from the space segment to scientific high performance computing, and worked offensive, defensive work for numbers of years. And currently, Inmar's my first commercial opportunity. I've been here about 3 years, and it's been exciting.
And I'm Jeff Hoge. I'm an information security engineer at MedCost. I've been in information security in a specific role for right around 3 or 4 years. Been part of the stand-up of a modernization of our security program at MedCost. But I've been in IT for about 17 years. I started with doing some consulting work, and in fact, I started even in a call center, and then did some consulting work, some network engineering, little bit of a preview in IT management, or a brief period of IT management. But information security has been a part of my career the entire time I've been in IT. And so look forward to getting into a little more detail about that and all of our experience here in a minute. So I want to show the results of that poll question we asked before. And so this is cool. We had a really good mix of experience levels. About a quarter of our attendees, they have no professional IT experience, and about a quarter of our attendees have more than 10 years of experience. So we're speaking to a great mix of people in terms of their levels of experience in IT. So with that, let's go ahead and ask our first question. We're gonna move through this panel, this roundtable. What would you say to someone that wants to move into cybersecurity as an entry-level IT role? So they've never worked in IT before, and they want to move right into cybersecurity.
So I believe I'm first up on the order. If they are wanting to do an entry-level role and they have never worked in IT, my advice would be work in IT if you can in some form or another. Or if you're not working directly in IT, if you happen to like the code, that's fine. Learn to do that as well as you can, because you really cannot adequately learn how to secure environments until you have the context of how certain things work. And Andrew, you mentioned that. You said you were like 10 years, I believe, as a network engineer. And a lot of my background in IT at the telephone company at the time, I would say it's similar to yours. And I still use that and pull from that on an almost daily basis as far as how do we connect our networks, how do we secure those appropriately. We had kicked around, is it really even technically an entry-level role if you don't have some of that experience? And I would argue it's not. You've got to have context of what it is that you're trying to protect.
Jason, follow up. I'm going to give you guys the secret, right? So secret's two-part: working hard and falling on your face, right? So do projects, whether they're small, such as writing a YARA rule or building a query, sharing knowledge, whether that's contributing original research or furthering research that's out there that solves a shared problem. But really be resilient, be strong enough to fall on your face, because that's how you learn.
That's funny you mentioned that, Lori, because that was one I keep thinking about, like moving into cybersecurity and moving up that chain. You have to be a yes man. You have to be Jim Carrey. You just have to say, okay, I'm going to fail at this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to learn. And that's so much. I mean, it's not just cybersecurity; it's anything. But I think that's really good in this field.
Yeah, I'd like to dovetail on what Jason and Lori and Andrew have shared here. Obviously, you have to know what it is you're attempting to fortify if you're expecting to excel in a certain area, specifically in cybersecurity. But equally, I think that in this role or in this space, and this is a difficult thing for professionals to take on, you have to quickly learn humility. There are going to be instances where you are perceived to be the expert, and you are perceived to understand a space of technology that you may not have had the building blocks to support. But security is such a broad spectrum of things, and so having humility, being able to point out that you may not be the expert, or identifying that one item that you were responsible for overseeing may have managed to slip past you as part of the falling on your face that was referenced earlier.
It never hurts to ask questions.
Yeah. Yep.
Jonathan, Courtney, any?
Hey, it's Courtney. So I think that one aspect that hasn't been mentioned that I definitely kind of hang my hat on is the human element of networking and getting to know people in IT and security, because those have been my best resources. Lori was my first mentor in security, and I learned a lot from her. So I would just kind of take some things and run with it, especially when she was busy. I didn't always do them right. I didn't always understand what I was doing, but the feet to the fire method works for me. And I definitely have to piggyback off of the humility piece as well. I was that person that was sitting in our SOC saying, okay, what's an IOC? And like, it wasn't embarrassing for me because it's not really my personality, but you have to be able to ask the questions if you don't know. So I think that just knowing that you don't know, it goes a long way, and being really, really straightforward with your coworkers and your peers will help you in the long run, because they'll understand that you're looking to learn, you're looking to learn from them specifically, and I think that's super important.
Yeah, so following up on that, I'm going to kind of mirror what was already said before, but I'm a firm advocate in having a solid base understanding of IT and the principles of computer science. I think it's fundamental to really understanding security, at least cybersecurity. So getting the basics of understanding how operating systems work, understanding the host level, understanding the network level, knowing what that looks like. Really just kind of get that bare knowledge in place, that base knowledge in place, and then understanding what threats are out there, how that data would be exploited. And there's a lot of resources to that. Some of that may look like just watching some videos or going on YouTube or a webinar and trying to emulate that activity yourselves, and trying to see not only how do you do it, but how do you see it? How do you detect it? And how do you stop it? And getting that kind of level of understanding will allow you to, I guess, scale that out. But start somewhere, start with a specific problem, start with a specific lab or topic, try to solve a problem, try to dig into it and really understand it. And as you grow, you're going to find yourself, like I still find myself digging through RFCs and protocols and trying to understand how things work, because it's really kind of fundamental to security.
I'm really thrilled to hear a lot of the answers we've gotten here. I put this question not knowing how some of these folks would answer, and I think the general theme that I'm hearing here is it's really hard to enter into cybersecurity as an entry-level IT role. It's really difficult because you've got to be able to understand what you're trying to protect. I've known there are lots of very successful people working in security roles now that came out of service desk roles, or they came out of identity and access management, where they're doing AD accounts all day long, and they're resetting passwords and things like that. And they have a desire to go deeper and learn more in that. There's people who are, myself included, that are very successfully, I think, working in a security role because I learned how to break things, and maybe a couple of the things that I broke, I had to learn why. Why did they break? What contributed to what were the factors that led up to an outage, or that led up to something going down? So I really am a strong proponent of get some IT experience. If that's help desk, if that is working in a development position, IT trainers, really good trainers, make very, very good security awareness trainers. And so I really believe that cybersecurity as an entry-level IT role is very difficult to do. So piggybacking on that, how would someone with experience in an IT discipline make the career change into cybersecurity?
So I wrote this down on a sheet of paper because I wanted to remember. My thought about that is, what can you do where you are? It doesn't matter what your role is, whether you're IT, project manager, whatever it is, to improve the security posture of your organization. And you don't necessarily, Jeff, to your point, have to be a security expert to do that. You have to be willing to ask questions. You have to understand human behavior and do things with a sense of excellence about things. The way I got my start in doing this, as I mentioned, is it was an IT start. But we had a security incident that occurred, and in the early 2000s, you didn't have to worry about security the same way that you do now. The threat landscape's different. We have different threat actors. Everybody's connected to the internet, and you didn't have to worry about things in ways. But once that incident occurred, I wanted to know why. I started asking questions, and then what else do we need to do to improve our security posture? My title was technician at the time. It had nothing to do with security. People weren't thinking along those lines, but that was a pivot point in my career that I used to then start asking questions. What do you do? What do we need to be doing to improve things? And it wasn't even part of my job description. It was, what can I do to help make this better? And through that, I'll tee off of this. I also got introduced to InfraGard. So if you're interested in security, I think some of the best things that you can do are things like what you're doing right now, being a part of something like this. I got introduced to InfraGard. I learned about security. I went to a conference. I got introduced to ISSA. That's how I got my start in ISSA through doing that. I also served on our Triad board for 6 years. So taking the initiative, doing things in the place where you are to improve your security posture can go a long way towards helping you feed into the roles that you want to get into ideally for a long-term career choice.
Yeah, Jason, you touched on a good point about that individual contribution, kind of adding value as an individual, right? So the IT to cyber crosswalk, right? Like kind of that translation of disciplines isn't always easy or intuitive, right? It still takes a substantial amount of grit. You have to want it. It's competitive, right? You have to hustle, always learning, right? So you can't just stroll on over to cyber, right? You're not going to make it. So really, if you have like strengths from a previous discipline, such as IT, help desk, whatever, use that, right? But kind of translate it to a cyber problem or a cyber data set, so you can still kind of bring that individual value across with you, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with Lori and Jason, but have a slightly different twist in terms of the philosophy of you know, what it would take to specifically have someone with experience move into the cybersecurity role. You know, frankly, I think that you can teach technology to anyone. In fact, many of us, that's the role we play, is to help people better understand technology in the workspaces or in our areas of employment where we are. We also have a fundamental role to help teach others about cybersecurity, whether that's direct or indirect. So when I think about someone that's already in IT, or maybe even not in IT, and the idea of what you would look for in those individuals, it's really those soft skills, right? I look for someone that is interested in entering into cybersecurity, that has they demonstrate an inquisitive nature. If they're inquisitive, that is a fundamental ability. Whether they're inquisitive in IT, whether they're inquisitive in operations, or whether they're inquisitive in any area. And I think it's important for those individuals to look to surround themselves with peers or with leaders that are modeling the coaching and analytical behaviors that are necessary, not just in cybersecurity, but necessary in other areas of business. Analytical behaviors are critical, and it's important at all levels of the organization to start building those fundamentals. So I would just acknowledge that that's one area. I do look for tenacity and persistence. That's a really important thing to find in someone that's not going to give up if they reach a dead end, but someone that's going to be interested in maybe looking for another path to answer the question that's in front of them. And also, I think it's highly important to be networking for opportunities. This is a great example of that. And to be critical of your current career path. What I mean by that is, If you are in a certain space of technology, then you should be critical of the areas where there are vulnerabilities in that particular space. And if you can be self-aware and self-critical and critical of your current career path, I think that's a great trajectory to get you into a role in cybersecurity.
I'd say just take what makes you you, and sell it. Because I heard, I was on one of these other sessions earlier this week, and one of the panelists had a good point. Nobody's path's the same. Don't compare it to anybody else's. Each is unique, which makes it fun. So make it yours. I think if you're looking to a specific field in cybersecurity, look at like sample job postings, see what some of the roles, responsibilities they have for that role, what they require of it, and do a self-assessment, see where you're weak, and then take advantage of different resources online. There's a ton of free resources, capture the flags, user groups, stuff like this, where you can start building some of those skills out to help you move into that role that you'd like to be in.
Hey everybody, it's Courtney again. I absolutely have to agree with that. I think that coming from a background that was absolutely not IT, you have to really be interested. You have to show that you're willing to learn. And again, you do have to be inquisitive. I actually really love that point. Because if you're not going to take initiative to find new problems or tackle, potential issues within your enterprise, then you just probably don't have the personality that you're going to need to continue on in the security world. I got, like I said, the feet to the fire method was kind of my way into security. And so I came from a project management background. I didn't really know the ins and outs of security. But one of my first projects was standing up a threat hunting team. And that's a really, sexy thing to do in today's security world. But just being in that project and standing up that initiative helped me learn a lot about security and what's important to the enterprise I worked for at the time. And so I think that really just throwing yourself in there, and then if you're an experienced professional and you do understand the network, it will help you a bunch in that arena. But just showing initiative is incredibly important.
Yeah, so I'm going to mirror what Andrew said a lot. I think he raised an excellent point, and Courtney was just touching on that. And that's really having that analytical and inquisitive mindset. That's critical to the role. Critical thinking, being able to understand bias, being able to understand discern what's an assumption versus what's observed, and trying to build fact and knowledge out of that is really important to understanding security. From a path, if say you were a sysadmin or a net admin, or you were helping help desk, and help desk is an excellent feeder because it's exposed to such a wide range of security areas. Any of these areas, they feed into it. So kind of having that comprehensive matrix knowledge of IT technologies is essential to being a security analyst. And I think having the fundamentals of being a good security analyst is fundamental to being a good like incident responder or upper level analyst, and having that that core positions you to be a better engineer. So it's I think there are tracks. I think having security and analysis background is fundamental to that. Having that initial breadth of knowledge. For instance, it's hard to advise or detect threat activity against a database if you don't know how they work, right? You don't understand ODBC connections or how that process looks like, or what it works, or what sockets or ports, or what makes up that. So it's going to be very difficult to be in that realm without it. But say you are a DBA already, right? Do you understand how firewalls work? Do you know how socket filtering works? So really exposing yourself to the areas that you don't already know is important. And we may touch on this later, but I think another thing is being self-driven, really learning on your own. You can't wait or expect a job or a role to throw you into it. If you want to learn it, just go out and learn it. There's resources, there's information available, which we'll touch on. But yeah, I think that being that self-driven, inquisitive, critical thinker, and really figuring out what you don't know and learning it, at least at the base level, and getting that the fundamentals of security analysis down is one of the most important first steps to take.
Yeah, and again, echoing what so many people have said already. I'm going to make a statement here. I feel like in working in information technology, the more that I know, the more I realize I don't know, right? I thought at one point I was an expert on the network until I dropped into Wireshark and actually put that network traffic under a microscope and saw all these anomalies and all these things I didn't know about. And so a couple of pieces of advice that I would give here is, if you're in an IT discipline right now, go deep with that discipline. Learn, seek to understand cause and effect, right? If you're a person that, and we're all IT people, have you tried turning it off and on again, right? When you tell someone to restart their machine or restart a router or a switch, and the problem is magically fixed, is there a part of you that seeks to understand why? Why did that problem happen in the first place? And so if you're in systems administration, go deep there. And also, to Jonathan's point, understand security is probably as wide as IT itself. Security is not really a niche of IT. And so, so just seek to go deep in your current area of knowledge or in your current focus in your career. I would say if you are that kind of person that wants to understand cause and effect, what caused things to break, what configuration issues contributed to the bad guys getting in, I think a good next step would be to understand risk management concepts. Because I see a lot of people trying to make the shift into making security decisions on behalf of their company, but they really don't have the authority to make those security decisions on behalf of their company. And I see it all the time where that's happening. So I would also say understand risk management concepts. From a practical perspective, I'm never one to say a certification is the answer. But risk management, if you go through like the material for Security Plus as an example, you're going to find that you understand the different responses to risk. What does it mean to compensate for a risk versus mitigate a risk versus accept a risk, and who has the authority to do that? I think would give a person a leg up in moving into cybersecurity. So we talked a lot about our own career paths, and I'm going to skip over that one because I think that in the next questions, if there's something, I'm talking to our panel, if there's something in your experience or some hurdle you had to get over that you'd like to share with us, I think you can share that with your answers to some of the other questions. So I'm going to jump into this next question. And knowing we touched on this a little bit, but what traits, behaviors, and skill sets would you look for in a candidate in a cybersecurity role?
Some of that, I think, depends on what you're hiring for. If I'm hiring for a SOC, like if I had your role, Lori, then I'm going to be looking for a different skill set than I would for somebody to be just a straight analyst, particularly if they're a compliance analyst. I want for everybody to be able to communicate. I think that's probably one of the biggest problems I see just in general today is people can't string together a sentence without it being in short form and all that. They don't do that. It's not a good business communication. I think people forget that much of what you said, Jeff, security is not a subset. Security is a business problem. So it's helpful if you understand risk and you understand the language of business. We're talking about things and people don't do well with laws and those type of things put into the vocabulary. So you have to speak the language of the executive when you're communicating things out. What I said I look for, and I put in my notes here, I look for curiosity. We've already talked a lot about that. I want people to be able to ask why. Why did this happen? It's not enough to just say, have them say, turn around, walk off. Have you tried turning it off? And all of it's a great analogy for that. Why did that happen? Or what can you make this do? If you're more the hacker mentality, it's not what does this do, what can I make this do? So those are attributes I look for. I look for a strong work ethic. I don't want somebody to sit there and be lazy about things. I want somebody to really go in there, ask questions, go into Google, try to solve the problem, try to find out why it occurred. And as a softball thing, believe it or not, I felt like this would be worth bringing up. When you're in an interview and people are asking you the softer questions, what do you like to do? My ears perk up if somebody has a background in music. Because almost without exception, I have found almost everyone in some form or another that I've worked with in IT or even security through the years has some type of musical background. There's something about the brain thinking about things like that, that if you play an instrument or you've sung or you've done anything like that whatsoever, honestly, my ears perk up to things like that because that tells me some of these other attributes might fall in line with that. Most people don't think about that, but I thought it was worth mentioning.
It's an interesting correlation, Jason. And a lot of your traits kind of mirror what I had written as well as a response. But my traits are agnostic of role in candidates. So, and we touched on these. Humility is a big one. That kind of resiliency to fail, because that's how the learning process works. Inquisitiveness and strong work ethic, and being able to be independent yet collaborative. So.
I'll weigh in here also and may reiterate a little bit of what was already stated. Communication is fundamental in the security space. You already have a number of things that you're up against with respect to how you're going to engage with frontline employees, how you may potentially engage with your peers, and how you would potentially engage with executives. And being able to take something highly technical and to break that down into layman's terms is going to be so critical to success and the trajectory of your success in this type of a career path. The other thing that Jonathan had hit on earlier, which I think is equally important, is never to assume fault. There's a reference called humble inquiry, where the idea of engaging with someone in a way that is inquisitive, it's the nature of asking a question without being condescending or without pointing fingers. And that's going to happen so frequently as employees are attempting to leverage technology, but maybe leveraging it in the wrong way. Some of that just comes down to basic education. Initiative was also referenced before. Initiative, when I look for any technology candidate, that's the #1 thing I look for. It takes a lot for an individual to be able to say, that needs to be addressed, and I'm going to be the person to address it. And so searching for that or seeking that in a candidate is so important. And be prepared in interviews with respect to security to go through scenarios. Role playing out certain scenarios is going to happen in an interview. So you may as well be prepared for exercising that critical thinking, exercising some of that humility, and showing how you might take one scenario and apply it to another. I'm going to try to end on this note with a little humor. Jeff Hoge, who's part of my current team, happens to be referred to as Bruce Wayne on our team. He is just so tenacious when it comes to trying to understand the root cause of an item or an issue. And so it's really fundamentally how I believe he's managed to make his way into the role that he's in right now. But, you know, be prepared to be that Bruce Wayne for your organization. Be prepared to be the Jessica Jones, the Barry Allen, and if you're feeling really froggy, Howard the Duck. Just be prepared to be that investigative figure for your team or your organization. And if you're prepared to do that and you demonstrate those types of qualities and traits, it's going to be acknowledged and opportunities are going to open up for you.
It's so funny how we all say problem solver, because that was the top of my list of traits. But also self-learner, not someone who's spoon-fed, someone who can think outside the box, because in security, you're trying to outthink adversaries. So you can't just assume that they think the same way that you do, that they're going to try and compromise systems the way that you would expect them to. You have to look at situations from someone else's perspective. Definitely. I think someone who, especially in security, never accept, always question. And I lucky on my team that sometimes I'll say, well, that's the way it's been. Yes, just accept that risk. And they're like, but do we have to? And I'm like, no, we don't. We really ought to go ahead and secure that. I think especially one thing that it's huge in IT, but especially if you're going to work in security and communicate with other groups, you have to have emotional intelligence. You have to know what you're saying and how it comes across. You have to use those soft skills because I've worked with a lot of people in different roles in IT, but in security, and I've been on the other end before I was in security, and somebody'd say, well, this is the way it is, and that's the way it is. I'm not going to explain it, and I'm not going to even be nice about it. But I think if you can try and meet with people on their level to explain why it is, what the risk is, and how that impacts them, it definitely goes a long way. And if you want to have a successful team, I'd say anyone in your team who's going to interact with anybody outside IT needs to have those skills.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think that the interpersonal skills are key. I love the music correlation. So, and it made me feel good because I played the viola for 13 years. So I'm like, oh, I am made for this. Awesome. All right. But in all seriousness, I think that when you're looking at security, you also have to look at yourself and see what you can bring to the table that might be a different flavor. For instance, just because I know myself, I did my master's in law, and I know it seems really strange, but I now understand financial compliance and risk and how businesses operate and things like that. So really be in tune with what you bring to the table that is different. I think that if you can articulate that during an interview, that's a beautiful thing. But, you know, if you're a well-rounded person, you're going to be able to excel in security.
Yeah, Courtney, that was an excellent point about multidisciplinary experience. So I agree with everything that's been said already, and I won't rehash that. But I'd also add that candidates, when I'm looking at a candidate or considering a candidate or someone who step into the role for the team, I look for transparency and honesty. Someone who, if they don't know something, they say, yeah, I don't know that. I think that speaks a lot. That's extremely helpful because you can't learn if you don't realize that you don't know, which Jeff pointed out earlier. Beyond that, people who are not afraid to step outside their comfort zone, right? So if you're not pushing yourself, you're not learning, you're not growing. If you're doing something that's comfortable, you're probably not, you're not pushing yourself to be better. So you have to constantly push yourself outside of your comfort zone. If you want to tackle a new technology, an area I see security lagging is virtualization technologies, container technologies, cloud computing, codeless, serverless computing. Security hasn't caught up, and that's because not enough people are pushing themselves into it, right? They're afraid to take that SecDevOps step or DevOps, which leads into the point Andrew brought up with understanding how a perspective with other people and to be an effective security implementer. Not necessarily as an analyst, but as an engineer, you can't tell people, hey, this is the way it's going to be and expect, adoption. You have to work with people because a lot of times the security engineers, they only see one side of it. They say, this is a regulation. This is why we should do it. It makes perfect sense to me, but I don't see what the developer sees. I don't know. I was like, yeah, if we did that, that would break our entire product line, and the ROI for redev is ridiculous. So it's trying to meet each other halfway, expressing the intent of security rather than a verbatim, implementation. So trying to merge and doing at least at minimum best effort and trying to work with each other to kind of find a working solution is really important. So people who are open to that is that's a really important trait.
Yeah, I'll add a couple of soft skills, and one of the things that I think is interesting as we've gone through this panel, what are we hearing over and over again? Soft skills, soft skills, soft skills. We're talking to people who, it goes without saying, you need to be technically competent. You need to desire to learn more. But I'll add a couple of soft skills that I'm a big proponent of. The first one is empathy. Empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of that developer that you're asking to fix a problem. Put yourself in the shoes of that executive that is responsible fiscally for the company that you're asking to expand the budget in some part of your security program. Empathy is really, really required. Put yourself in the shoes of that user who maybe thinks that security is just the computer police at your business. Empathy, I found, helps someone become very, very successful in this field. It's helped me quite a bit. In fact, I say this, Andrew Ramos, who I report up through, is on this panel. I even said this in an interview. I said empathy, 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 empathy. And sure enough, he's even said that back to me. When I've had issues at work, he said, now did you deal with empathy here? So that's a huge soft skill. The second soft skill I'll point out, and this is one that I think is really difficult to interview for, and that is this natural curiosity. Natural curiosity. Andrew called me Bruce Wayne. How about Curious George? Make Curious George your hero, but because we need to be driven to dig. We need to be driven to curiosity. And by the way, just being curious or saying you're curious is one thing, but spending a late evening trying to figure out what went wrong or trying to figure out what caused a particular thing to happen. I think that that's a really, really excellent soft skill that's really hard to demonstrate in an interview room, but it helps someone become very successful in this field. I'm going to skip this next question. We're running out of time, and we have about 10 minutes remaining, but I want to ask this panel a fun question. Plug what you're reading, listening to, or studying. Maybe you've read a good book or have a podcast you would recommend, or maybe even not now, maybe something you've read before that really helps you or has helped you in the past to stay sharp in your career.
Well, in my case, I probably spend as much time listening to things on leadership as I do how to do the technical stuff. The technical stuff is stuff that I get from here in the office working in a hands-on environment. Podcasts, don't listen to those as many, but I do have one that I like, is the CISO vendor relationship podcast. Any of us who have worked in security, worked with vendors, I would recommend vendors to listen to that. People wanting to get into security to listen to that, and security professionals to listen to that, because they've got a good cross-section balance of how vendors should talk to us as security professionals, and then also what our needs are. And beyond that, events like this are great. Just one of the sessions I went through yesterday, I learned about a site that has already helped me. I was like, man, I wish I'd known about this months ago. Never get into this field if you're not wanting to continue learning. Because once you're certified, at least in the security profession, we have to do this. We have to do so many hours. But that goes back to the curiosity and the learning and the other things. That's all part of being in this field.
Yeah, Jason, you're right. You have to be a chronic student, right? I have that condition. I'm a chronic student. So right now I'm studying a lot of cyber ethics, right? So cyber operational ethics, totally relevant. But I encourage you guys to think about the next level of cyber problems, like the ones a year from now, 2 years from now, beyond kind of the vendor buzzwords. Elevate your research, elevate your reading, your studying, your podcast, things like that are to something kind of next level. So something that's going to be impactful, the topics that are going to affect us in the near term and the long term future, that are going to kind of shape policy and shape cyber operations to come. So don't just study the now, but think ahead, right? And start learning that stuff now.
Just to echo what Jason and Lori had shared, I think it's so important to continue where possible, continue your education, continue to stay sharp, and to stay motivated to continue to excel in your careers. I'll give you a little bit of a reality of what I'm dealing with respect to continuing to stay sharp. We have been at MedCost involved in a project that is a 2-year-long implementation, and we've got more years to come. And so being able to stay on the cutting edge of security has been a real challenge. But I have been able to take that opportunity of helping to support this implementations on behalf of our operations area. Supporting that has helped me to engage more closely with different areas of the business where I may have had a blind spot. And I found that to be very, very helpful, engaging with consultants and understanding how they're trying to help us, but understanding that there are some ways we need to fortify what they're doing within our sandbox to make sure that they're not creating any additional exposure for us. So taking this project and using it to just kind of leverage how we're continuing to mature security within our organization. I will refer back to that one reference that I made a moment ago, Humble Inquiry by Edgar Schein. That is a fundamental book that we have not only started leveraging in the IT department, we started leveraging that across the organization with our business leaders. So if you do have an opportunity and are thinking through soft skills and how to develop those soft skills, I believe that to be one of the fundamental things that you can start looking at is that particular book, and maybe incorporating that into your day-to-day exploration of the cybersecurity space.
I've got a bunch. I love this field. It's so fun. There's so much to learn. As y'all, the panelists have said, it's so wide. So SANS, SANS.org, they do a lot of free events, capture the flags. I did one, I think it's called, it was either Net Wars or DFIRS. I never done forensics. I did horribly, but I learned so much. And it was fun. So check out, get on mailing list with SANS, see whenever they're offering free stuff. They did a lot with the pandemic. Every Christmas or holiday season, they do KringleCon. It's just fun. You have to solve problems, hone your skills. Hack the Box is a great site for developing, I guess, pen testing and breaking into web applications. Where I'm at in Virginia, there's a local group, local-ish in Roanoke, and we meet monthly, virtually or in person. And it's great because we get to sharpen each other's skills. Wherever you're at, watching virtually, get plugged in with a group, learn. It's so fun because you'll have experts and you'll have noobs, but everybody helps each other. So that's awesome. And then Black Hills Information Security out of South Dakota, every Thursday, 1 o'clock, that's where I'm at because it's just fun. They teach you so much. And then you learn more people to follow on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, that's where I learn a lot because I'll end up following some of the BHIS folks, and then they start retweeting or referencing other people, so I start following them, and I learn about vulnerabilities faster that way, about forensics, about all kinds of things that I just don't know anything about. So it's really, really fun.
Hey everybody, so I'm going to show a little bit of my super nerd side here. I love the podcast Legal Wars. There's actually some that encompass the background of cybersecurity and data privacy, so I highly recommend that podcast. I also love to read about data breaches. I know that's also very, very nerdy, but I'm very interested in emerging privacy law and how that affects the security environment. So I'll look into, CCPA, which is the California Consumer Privacy Act, or the SHIELD Act, which is New York's data privacy law. If you actually get in and read those acts, you'll learn a lot. You'll learn a lot about how certain states handle those things and incidents and how you have to report. So I really enjoy that. And then I know that nobody's gotten into their fun stuff, but highly recommend a book called Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. I'm a huge reader, and he's my favorite author for fun. So that's kind of my perspective.
Yeah, so I'm going to mirror what Andrew Travis said. I think he nailed it with SANS and BHIS. SANS has a number of white papers. They have the reading room, which is a free resource, tons of technical in-depth analysis papers. The graduate students in SANS, they all publish these. They're free to read. You can also go in their webcasts, look at their directory, not just upcoming, but archived webcasts. If there's a specific topic you want to know more, like OS query, Sysmon, or like how to set up Elasticstack for monitoring, they cover it. They have tutorials, walkthroughs, great material there. I'm always in there. He's also spot on with the Twitter handles. Follow security researchers. Guys like Tavis Ormandy with Google's Project Zero, great stuff. Really in depth. If you're into malware analysis, Lenny Zeltzer, great. Eric Zimmerman, Differ. There's a ton of resources there. If you're into reading, I like No Starch Press. I find like the authors there, they're well vetted. Almost all the content that they're publishing, the books there are excellent. Beyond that, Code Academy, Khan Academy, tons of free online resources for learning, not just the fundamental skills for the basics of security, but coding and how to get into scripting and automation, which is one of the big things I look for in candidates, because it shows that they have a level of technical depth to them. I've actually taken towards looking for people coming out of college. I usually look with people who have at least some scripting or programming experience, at least one language, right? That's kind of one of the core things I look for. But all the material you need for that's free. Same thing, AWS, Azure, they all have free resources. Tons of stuff online to look at, so.
Excellent. And, you know, I don't know about the other panelists, but I'm like taking notes here, and I'm thinking, hey, I need to go get busy and read some things. A couple of things that I'll quickly plug, and then we've got one question from the audience. I'll plug a couple of things. There's a podcast. It's not technically deep, but it is, in my opinion, it's the best information security podcast out there. It's like hacker campfire stories. It's called Darknet Diaries, and it's excellent. I have sent some people that I work with episodes of it, and it is absolutely excellent. Jack Resider, the guy who puts it together, just does a phenomenal job. I also, if you notice that I was focusing a lot on cause and effect, there's a book series that has little to do with information security, but gets a lot into cause and effect. It's called Freakonomics. Just fantastic book series. It's a couple of economists that sit around and try to solve the world's problems with numbers. And it's entertaining, but it also causes you to think about cause and effect. Quickly, and I have 2 minutes before they start throwing tomatoes at me, but we have one question from the audience. And that is from Nancy. She said the perception from job openings is that they require CISSP. And today, is that the requirement before being considered for security positions? Does anyone want to quickly try to take that on?
No.
I'm going to be positive. I'm going to let someone else field that one. Go ahead, Nancy.
Necessary?
You got this, girl.
Is it necessary? No. To be a good security professional, do you have to have it to get your foot in the door? In a lot of cases, depends on the HR office, but yes, I would say yes.
It'll
But it
definitely
doesn't mean you're going to be a good security pro. It's just a piece of paper, and says you keep doing things like this to keep your skills up to date.
I would also add that I think that people should continue to apply for jobs even if they don't believe they're qualified, because you never know what that employer is going to potentially see in your resume. You might apply to 900 jobs, and that one job might be the right job, and you might be the perfect fit. So I would not read a description of a job necessarily and just say, no, I'm not qualified, if that's the question.
Right.
That's a great point. The employer may also be willing to invest in your career so that you can acquire your CISSP, and so that you can acquire either those certifications, certainly the experience and the knowledge that you might need, not just to support that organization, but to advance in your career.
And I'd have to say, when I moved into security, I didn't have a single security certification. They just took a chance on me. It was within the same organization. I proved myself in other fields. But yeah, like everyone's saying, if you can get your foot in the door, they'll definitely invest in you, because as you build the skills and the certifications, they're just going to reap those benefits.
Absolutely.
And in the security space, certifications and training, that's a really competitive item for hiring. So most organizations kind of offer that as incentive. So you should get that option. You should make that an option for yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate the answers there, and you know, it's almost like, because CISSP, like so many people have said, we're in a very competitive market. It will give you a leg up. It also requires experience, which I know is kind of chicken or the egg. But just go ahead and apply. Show off your soft skills. Go in deep technically. I know we're out of time, and there's a couple of people who asked some questions, and I'm going to try to get those questions over to the panelists and answer those for you offline. I got a lot of kudos, but I just want to say thank you so much for this roundtable. I know that this is going to do a tremendous amount to help out people in their career. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to our panelists for coming together and spending your afternoon to build other people up. And if I could end with that, maybe that's another characteristic. Have a desire to lift up other people. You need to have a desire to learn, but you also should have a desire to build other people's careers. So thank you all so much. Thank you to our panel. Thank you to our attendees. You all have a great day.
Thank you all. Take care.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.